بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we beseech Him, we seek refuge in Allah from the evil of ourselves. Whomsoever Allah guides, then none can guide them. Whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala misguides, then none can guide them aright. I bear witness and I publicly testify that none has the right to be worshipped in truth but Allah, and that Muhammad is His messenger to proceed. I'd like to welcome the brothers and sisters to another lesson of ours in which we are having a discussion, a dialogue with atheism. And what is interesting was a very famous atheist by the name of Sam Harris. When discussing a recent incident, he said, an issue between Islam and Christianity. And one of the high-ranking priest, he said, no, it's an issue between Islam and atheism. Meaning that this controversy is not between us and Christianity. My point here is that atheism affects all of us who care about morality, all of us who care about decency, and all of us who care about our young people being used as vessels for other people's pleasure and joy. The lectures that I've been given, while they are more aimed at a Muslim constituency, anybody who believes in God will find them very useful. Because at the end of the day, we recognize that there is something greater and bigger than ourselves out there. That greater and bigger thing we Muslims believe to be Allah, to be God. And because we recognize that we are small and insignificant, and we recognize that we've been created, it then means that there is a right and responsibility we have to our Creator. Over the weeks we've looked at a number of themes. Last week we looked at, in some depth, we looked at some of the issues related to atheism, and who can help me? What else did I talk about? Anybody? Atheism and human value. Atheism and human value. And I said, if it follows that we're just made of matter, particles, atoms, cells, and everything according to quantum physics and science is matter. I am made of matter, the radiator is made of matter. Then here comes the big question: how do we assign value to it? How do we say the radiator is more valuable than myself, or I am more valuable than the radiator? For example, gold. Gold. There are, trillions of tons of gold. Yeah? Most countries in the world have gold, which they use in terms of the economy and currency. There is not like 1,000 tons in America, 2,000 tons in China. Literally, countries have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of tons of gold. However, we say gold is a rare material, isn't it? How can it be rare if there's thousands of tons of it? It's because we assign value to it. We humans say, yeah, that's valuable. Same with diamonds. People say diamonds are valuable. Well, diamonds themselves may be valuable in human eyes, but it can be found in thousands of tons around the world. In fact, diamonds and gold are some of the oldest forms of currency that we have today. We've been using, us as Muslims, historically, we use the gold dinar and dirham. So in Islamic history, when you have the Muslim coin, it's made of gold, it has value itself. Where today we say the currency itself doesn't have value, the coin doesn't have value, The paper money doesn't have value, but it represents value. Yes? Which is a totally different thing. And some people, they debate, is money that we have today, does it have any value when it comes to, or does it not have any value? But here comes the point I'm trying to make. If everything is made of matter, how do we say a human being has more value than 10 tons of gold? Now some people will say, hey, 10 tons of gold have more value than a human being. We see that. People kill for gold. Isn't it? People kill for money. You know, if I went to the cash point and I had £1,000 in my hand, or £10,000, somebody saw me put the £10,000 in my pocket, there are people who would kill me for that money. Why? Because the money has more value than myself. They believe with that money there's more things they can do. But here comes the question. If we are made of matter, how can you say the radiator has less value than myself? Or I have more value than the radiator? Where did this whole idea that I have any worth come from? Where? Where does it come that human life has any worth or value? We know there are wicked people on the earth who don't care about human life. I remember once I had an argument with somebody about Saddam Hussein. And this person who was Arab, because Saddam Hussein is from a very well-known tribe called Ashama. This person...
It's from the Tikrit tribe.
He's from Tikrit, but the Shammari they are.
Al-Majid.
I think they go back to Sham. But anyhow, this man was from the Arab Bedouins, and he was arguing with me about Saddam Hussein. Put aside what Saddam Hussein believed. But I said, Saddam Hussein killed over 100,000 Kurds. 100,000 people, just like that. Doesn't that say anything to you about Saddam Hussein? Doesn't that say anything to you about how he viewed human life? How he valued human life? And what's strange is, we find 20 years later, the same people who gave him the chemical weapons to kill the Kurds are the same people who said, oh well look, he killed the Kurds, this is one of the reasons why we have to depose him. But human life has value. Every human life, every human being has value. If we believe that we just matter, then there is no value. And if we say there is value, where does this come from? We argued last week, isn't it? Where does it come from? If you say this human life here has value, and this human life here has value, where does this whole idea come from? It can't just be from humans, because humans, many humans, believe in killing other human beings. As we saw with Rwanda, Hutus and Tutsis, 1 million people were killed. And we've had many civil wars and many people with different ideologies. For example, Nazi Germany, where over 6 million people were killed. 6 million people were killed. Deemed to be subhuman, when they were humans. The Jews are humans just like us. They're human beings. They have value. They were children who were killed. And if you remember, at the first lecture, I mentioned, what did the Nazis, the white supremacists, they do? The same people who we have today in our society, gathering momentum. In one concentration camp, the head of the concentration camp, his wife, she used the skin, Jewish people's skin, to make a lampshade. She took the teeth, she took the jewelry. The same people who today are demonstrating against Islam and Sharia law. Don't get it twisted. Those people demonstrating against Sharia law, the same people in Nazi Germany. And I gave you the quote of a Greek politician. He said, we will make soap of them. Those migrants coming from Libya, coming from parts of Africa and Asia, people coming from Syria, what would he do? He'll stick them in concentration camps and make soap of them. That's what he said. He was very clear and ambiguous about it. I told you, Sam Harris said that from the people who are speaking the most sensibly about Muslim migration are the fascists, and that's what the fascists believe. Look at that. That our value as human beings, us Muslims, we have no value. If they had their way, they'd execute us, exterminate us. But because we believe in God, we say, God has told us that humans have value. So if you believe people have value, where did you get your idea of value from? Where does it come from? Do some people, we as Muslims believe, if you're black, if you're white, whatever your skin color is irrelevant to your value. You are valuable. As a human being, you're valuable. You have rights that people can't just take. Even though Muslims in history have just ignored what Islam has said and taken people's rights till today. But Islam, the teachers of Islam say, hey, irrespective of if you're a Jew or if you're a Muslim, you have rights. And we see a number of narrations where Sahaba were taken to Islamic courts by people who are not Muslims. Like Ali, radiallahu anhu, was taken to court by the Jewish person, and they ruled against Ali, who was an Arab, who was a Muslim, who met the Prophet ﷺ. They ruled against him because he had no substantive proof. This is Islam. And when the Jewish person saw that, he became Muslim because he saw the justice of Islam. Look at Islam here and us today. It's like night and day. But my point, if you believe humans have value, where does this come from? Where? And we are arguing that it only can come from God. Also, we argued about something else last week. What did we argue about? Value, something else. Excellent. Also, we looked at how were we created? Were we created from nothing? Or were we created from something which created itself? So a mother giving birth to herself, we said ridiculous. Never been done, never will be done. If we create, are we created? We talk about existence, because people come and say to you, God doesn't exist. And we said the default is God exists. You have to prove to me that God doesn't exist. And this is something very important. It's called the narrative. It's important to control the narrative. When people come to you with ideas, you are listening to them, but you are not taking on board their ideas. If somebody comes to you and says, does God exist? You're not going to argue from their angle. They're asking you what you believe. So they've got to understand where you come from. Are you with me? Many times when people say at work or school, God doesn't exist, we start to debate and discuss from their point of view. No. You're asking me what I believe, so I'm going to tell you what I believe. So God existing is the default position. Why? First of all, most people don't believe God exists. That's the majority. It's very simple and it's very rational. Who made the stars? God did. Who made the fossils? Allah made them. It's very rational. If you say to me, prove God exists, I don't need to. Rather, you need to disprove God exists. Because I can look around me and see He exists. I can look in His creation and see He exists. You disprove. And disprove it by answering one fundamental question. How did we come into existence? How? Nobody on this planet can answer that question. Yes? Science has given up on the question of how do we come into existence? Yes? And if we say science has proven God doesn't exist, we've said this many times. Science is not just observation. It's not looking at this cup, but rather looking at this cup, then building a theory about the cup. That is why you can have science, we're going to discuss science probably next week. You can have science which is bad science, but it works. Proof, Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics, nobody believes in it today, is considered to be bad science. But it worked for hundreds of years, and it was precise. So science can be wrong, can be bad, and it works. And so we argued science is not the only form of knowledge in the world, and we'll talk about that later as well. But we said, if you say existence, that something created made the creator, well, who made that thing? If we say somebody made this cup, who made this cup? Human beings. Who made the human beings? Allah. If you say, well, Allah didn't make human beings, alright, who made the human being? Answer that question. Another human being. And then you have back a loop, going back and back and back and back and back, and you never ask the question. But rather, we say existence, everything came into existence by a creator who is uncreated. Allah is not created, but He is the creator. And that is the most simple and rational explanation for existence. So today what we're going to look at, inshallah ta'ala, is something that we find prevalent amongst people when it comes to the whole idea about God and existence. Now, another point I forgot to mention is, when you say science proves God doesn't exist, first of all, it is not from the remit of science to talk about God existing and not existing. The remit of science is observation of natural phenomena, things that we can see. Scientists don't go around looking for ghosts, yes? You never see scientists sitting in a haunted house looking for ghosts, or for angels, or for spirits, or for devils. This is not what science is about. If you say, well, science has proved God doesn't exist, to disprove something, you need to have an experiment. What was the God experiment? Name me it. What did it look like? Was it a test tube the size of the world? What was it? Because scientists have never engaged in trying to prove God exists or doesn't exist. Those people who say God exists or science proves God doesn't exist are what? Are people of ideology. And they say science has proved God exists as simple as the stars being there. The stars being there is an observation, is not scientific. Science is, how do the stars get there? Yeah, observe and make a theory. But seeing the stars is not scientific. I'm going to talk about that more. One of the biggest issues that we find, brothers and sisters, is that the issue of good and evil is problematic. For example, people say, well, if there's a God, why is there so much evil in the world? Am I right? It's the argument they come up with all the time. Why is there so much evil? And if there is so much evil and there is a God, is it that he created the evil? Or is it that he can't stop evil? There are all these types of questions. So we're going to look at this today. The fundamental problem here when you talk about good and evil is understanding the nature of God. Many times when Christians or atheists come to you, when you listen to atheists on YouTube, what strikes you is that they have a Judeo-Christian understanding about God. The Old Testament, the Bible, as you know, is made of two books. The first book is the Old Testament. The second book is the New Testament. The Old Testament essentially is making God a man. If you look at it, it's on a journey of making God a man. It talks about how Israel wrestled with God. If you look at the second, and we seek refuge in Allah. If you look at the New Testament, it's making man a God. Talking about Jesus ﷺ and how he is a deity. So most of the atheists, the secular atheists from the West, when they think about God, this is their background. Unlike ourselves, when we as Muslims think about God, we understand that he is the all-powerful, the most merciful, but we understand this in context to his majesty. When Western Europeans think about God, for example, it always goes back to a human being. This is their history. As you know, people before the coming of Christianity to England, they were pagans. God to them was a being, either a stone, an idol of stone, or it was something made of wax or something. And before this, the Romans who brought Christianity here, they were pagans. They worshipped Zeus, they worshipped Thor, they worshipped night, they have always worshipped something which is humanoid, in a human form. So many people here, when they think about God, the supreme deity, it always goes back to their understanding of God. Unlike ourselves, where Islam has conditioned us and our culture to understand we have mercy, but Allah is the all-mercy, the most merciful. His mercy is not like our mercy. It is in respect to his majesty. And we always see Allah's names and attributes like that. We never ever in our minds think of Allah or God being like a human being. Where they do. So when I was young, you go into a Catholic church. And Catholic churches, if you go inside, they have pictures of God and Jesus. When they do pictures of God, who is God? If God isn't the finger of God as Leonardo da Vinci drew him, God is what? He's an old white man with a white beard, white moustache, fatherly looking. This is how they represent God. This is how they represent God. Do we see God that way? No. We don't think of, when you think of Allah, you don't think of Allah in a human form. That is not Allah. Because we can't see Allah. So one of the biggest problems about good and evil is understanding the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? Because of the misunderstanding of the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they make mistakes. Yes? One of the things as Muslims that we understand about Allah is that He is just and He is merciful as He is powerful. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, He does it with justice. He does it with justice. Allah is not unjust to His creation. If we look at the Western historical concept of God, you had gods who are unjust, oppressed people, stole people's wives, stole people's money. Even look at this. The whole concept of the birthday. The whole concept of the birthday. The birthday, why do we have candles? Anybody know why do we have candles? This one.
No way evil spirits.
Excellent, brother. In the whole concept of God in the West, historically, you may have an ultimate supreme being. Then under that ultimate supreme being are lesser gods. And under these lesser gods are spirits. The reason why you have to have candles on your cake, historically, is they believe that they were spirits. We may call them jinn. And you have to make them happy on your birthday. Because if you don't make them happy, you have bad luck. So you have to sacrifice something for them. Now if you know, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet told us that a man went to paradise because of a fly, and a man went to the hellfire because of a fly. How? The Prophet told us ﷺ that there was two men, they came to this valley, and they had to cross the valley. So in order to cross the valley, they were told by the person at the gate, you have to sacrifice something. Anything. So one man, you have to sacrifice anything to their God. So he said, I've got nothing. They said, sacrifice anything, even a fly. So the man, he saw a fly, and he killed the fly in the name of their God. Where did he go to? Hellfire. Sacrificing something to other than Allah. The other person, he said to him, okay, if you want to pass, you have to sacrifice something. So he said, listen, I've never sacrificed anything but to Allah. Not doing it. So they killed him. Where did he go? He went to Jannah, went to paradise. Yes? So somebody went to hellfire because of a fly, went to paradise because of a fly. Now they said to make the spirits happy with you, what you have to do is to have candles and you blow them out. You blow them out to make the spirits happy. To make the spirits happy. Look at that. So if you don't have the candles or blow out the candles on your birthday, what happens to you? You're going to be oppressed. You didn't do anything to the spirits. You're going to be oppressed. And this is part of their understanding about God. Because when they see, I remember we talked about types of atheists. There are type of atheists who just don't want halal haram, just want to live their life, want to do me. Yes? You have to be careful of some of the sayings people say, I'm doing me. What does that mean? I'll do whatever I want to do, don't you tell me anything. Alright? So they just want to do no halal haram, I can go clubbing, smoke weed, do anything. So I'm atheist. I've got no boundaries. Yes? I've got no boundaries. It sounds so bad that one atheist in a debate with one of our brothers, they said if there's no morality or anything, which we discussed last week, morality, there's no morality, then somebody can have relations with his daughter. And this person said, yeah, I suppose so. As long as you use contraception so there's no baby, so there won't be a baby born with defect, that's okay. Look at that. Just to prove an argument, he said, yeah, it's okay for somebody to have relations with his daughter. But let somebody do it to his daughter and see how he feels. Just like one of them called, I think his name is Peter Singer, walaikum salam. This gentleman, this atheist, he said, those people who are disabled, who are sick, what you should do with them is euthanasia, kill them off. Because they have no use. That's what Hitler did. Hitler got rid of handicapped people. Hitler even started to get rid of German soldiers that were handicapped in the war. You know, you go to war, your legs get blown off. He started to get rid of them. One of the generals had to come to him and say, listen Hitler, listen Führer, our father, you're getting rid of all these soldiers now, and listen, the people are losing their morale. They're losing their morale, so you can't do it. So Hitler stopped. But this guy was saying, well look, hey, people with diseases, we should get rid of them, they have no use. Then you know what Allah did to him? His mother developed multiple sclerosis, or Parkinson's disease. Look at that. So according to his theory, he should have taken his mum to Switzerland or somewhere to get killed. Am I right? Did he do that? Nah, he didn't do that. Look at that. He looked after his mother, he fed his mother, got his mother a nurse. Look at that. Why didn't he put his money where his mouth is? You believe that people who are disabled, and we don't agree with you, we believe people who are disabled, are sick, elderly, have value. But you believe they have no value. Well, mum is sick, why don't you get rid of your mum? Why don't you go put your mum for euthanasia? It's not something we would encourage. We would say, no, we will look after your mum for, if you didn't look after your mum, we look after your mother for you. But look at that when the foot is on the other, the shoe is on the other foot. So, we said that there are types of atheists, that those who just like halal haram, don't want halal haram, then those type of atheists who have an issue with Allah. They just hate God because of something that happened in their life. And rather than understanding the true nature of Allah, they blame Allah for it. And so we said, but Allah is all powerful. Allah can make anything happen or not happen, if He wills. And so if we understand this, that Allah is merciful, Allah is just, and He's all powerful, it then makes us understand about good and evil. It sets a way so we can understand good and evil. If we look, for example, and I made this point, that we have to control the narrative. We have to control the narrative. When you're giving dawah, you are inviting people to what you believe, not inviting you to what they believe. This is where many people get mixed up. You're not inviting you to what they believe. You are educating people about what you believe. If I go now to a Jehovah's Witness, the Jehovah's Witness is not going to tell me about Islam, or are they? No. They're going to tell me what they believe and how they see life. So when somebody comes to you, or you go to somebody to explain about Allah, you're not going to tell them what they believe. Most people are very glued up on what they believe or don't believe. You're going to educate them about what you believe, so you control that narrative. And so you will tell them about Allah from where? From the Quran, from the Sunnah, as well as rational arguments. Rational arguments means arguments that are taken from the Quran and the Sunnah, as we did. We said, are people, do they create themselves? Were they created of nothing? This all comes from the Quran. He's questioning, did you create yourself? Of course you didn't. Your mother created you. Who created your mother? Her mother. And then who created all the way back? Allah. So we bring these rational arguments to people, but we have to make them understand exactly where we come from by using our own narrative. One of the things that we learn, if we look at the story of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam and Khidr. All of us, we know Musa and Khidr. The story of Musa and Khidr, Surah Al-Kahf, which we read most Jum'ahs, if not every Jum'ah, where Musa was looking for the most wisest person, the person with the most knowledge. There's some lessons that we learn from this, and I won't repeat those verses here. What we learn from them is foreknowledge. That Khidr was the one who Allah had given knowledge that He had not given to Musa. Allah tells us in the Quran, indeed you will not be able to have patience with me, meaning you will not be able to accompany me with when you see me doing things that go against your law, because I have knowledge from God that has not been taught to you, and you have knowledge from God that has not been taught to me. So, walaikum salam to Allah. So Khidr had knowledge that Musa didn't have, and he affirmed that Musa had knowledge that he didn't have. So here we understand that our knowledge and understanding is limited. As human beings, how can we understand good and evil when our knowledge is limited? How? 200 years ago, if somebody said you could take a metal bird or something that looks like a bird made of metal and it will take you from here to Makkah, what would the people have said? You're crazy, isn't it? They would say, this man here, stick him in a mental asylum. Am I right? If I said at the same time, we will have metal ships that will take people to the moon, what would they say? Same thing. I'm crazy. Do we have metal birds that take people to Makkah? Yes. Do we have a metal ship that takes you to the moon? Yes, we do. We don't have foreknowledge of this type of technological advancement. Who here was born before 1980? Raise your hands. Before 1980. Definitely put your hand up, Share. Could you have predicted the mobile phone? No. I remember in the 90s, who remembers Nokia? Nokia, yes?
Brick.
Remember Nokia? Even Nokia had phones that weren't bricks. They had I had a nice little small Nokia. Could you imagine back in the 90s when Nokia was really well known and everybody had Nokia phone, that phones would develop to the level that we have today? Could you have seen that? Nobody could have seen that. Where a phone is almost like a mini computer today. You don't even have to have a computer to do half the things you need to do. You can do it on your phone, am I right? Who could have predicted that? None of us. If we don't have that knowledge to predict what's going to happen in terms of technology, how can we have foreknowledge about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed? From what is good or what we see as being bad? Also, wisdom and reason. That Khidr was given wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understanding the totality of this knowledge. He was given knowledge and he understood how to use it and how not to use it. We are limited. We are limited in our dunya knowledge. Our dunya knowledge. What's my proof of that? Who's heard of a medication called Viagra? Viagra, no? Yes, Viagra. What was the original purpose of Viagra? Huh? No, that's not the original purpose of Viagra.
I used to know.
You used to know?
Used to know. It was for another purpose, but
Yes.
obviously it was developed for that purpose.
Viagra was developed to deal with heart conditions. Yes. Originally, it's a medication for heart conditions. However, they found that it could help in dysfunction. And it's marketed today as a medication for dysfunction. Look at that. Did they have any idea of the uses of Viagra when they first made the medication? No. They didn't understand the totality of that medication. Only later on they understood that this medication could be used for something else. Look at aspirin. Aspirin is, if not hundreds of years old, am I right? When I was growing up not so long ago, what did we use aspirin originally for? No? For? No. Headache. You had aspirin. After aspirin came paracetamol. Now we have ibuprofen, am I right? It was a painkiller. Even today you may go to a doctor, he or she will say to you, take 2 aspirin, 2 Panadol, because they take care of different types of pain. The aspirin will deal with pains in the bones, and the paracetamol will deal with the general pain. Am I right? However, what do we use aspirin for now? For heart conditions. If you've got a heart condition, your doctor may say to you, take half an aspirin because it thins the blood. Half an aspirin, a quarter of an aspirin a day. You may be on aspirin for the rest of your life because it thins the blood. Did the person who discovered aspirin hundreds of years ago understood what you could use aspirin for? No. It shows that we are limited in our knowledge and very limited in our wisdom how to use that knowledge. So, this leads us to understand that Allah knows things which we don't know. Allah knows things that we don't know. And this is not a cop-out. It's not just to say, oh, well, Allah knows and just leave it like that. No, it's a reality. Allah knows things which we don't know. Again, looking at medical discoveries which really send home the message, Who remembers in the 1980s when AIDS was first an epidemic? Who remembers that? I remember that. AIDS was first an epidemic in the 80s. I think I'm right when we say we believe that we were told that like AIDS would wipe out most of humanity. Am I right? It was like there was nothing to cure AIDS. Am I right? Back in the 80s, if you had, in fact, the reality, if you had AIDS in the 80s and 90s, you're not alive today. Most people who contracted AIDS in the 80s and 90s, they died. What about the case today? Is that the same case today? No. They have medication you take. So even if you are in contact with somebody with AIDS, you don't get AIDS. The medication that you take, if you have AIDS, it allows you to live. Did we know this back in the 80s? No. It's unknown to us. Showing us our knowledge and wisdom is limited. So Allah knows things which we don't know. We are extremely limited. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows what will happen and what won't happen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, He is the most and all wise. So He does something, keep in mind, for a just reason, with a just purpose and a just cause. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He does something or makes something happen, He does something based upon these three important things. And so, when we look at evil, brothers and sisters, there's something we have to understand. That something may be evil, but it is not pure evil. That is totally evil in itself with no good in it. The great scholar Ibn Taymiyyah said, God doesn't create pure evil, rather in everything that He creates is a wise purpose by virtue of what is good. However, there may be some evil in it for some people, and this is partial, relative evil. As for the total evil or absolute evil, the Lord is exonerated of that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, evil is His creation. And He allows evil to exist because we understand Allah's divine decree. That everything comes into place by Allah's will. And there are some things that transpire, that happen, doesn't mean that Allah is happy with it. But He allows it to transpire for a wisdom that He knows. For a wisdom that He knows. Doesn't mean He's happy with it. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of us. And somebody may be a Muslim. They believe in Allah, believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the last messenger. They don't pray. They don't pray. If you don't pray, do you die automatically? No. You don't. You're still alive, isn't it? Yes? Is Allah happy with you not praying? No. So imagine this now. Imagine this now. I'll use a good example. Back in the 1970s, when the Rastafari movement came out in the Afro-Caribbean community, I know in my parents, if you had dreadlocks like Bob Marley, you were given an ultimatum. Either you cut your hair or get out of the house. Unlike today, where it's just fashion, am I right? Back in the 70s, it was a big thing. Have dreadlocks. Your parents would tell you, cut your hair and get out of your house. Look at that. So we as Muslims, we have been commanded to pray. We've been commanded to pray. Allah is not happy with us not praying. However, He allows you to live and to continue. It doesn't, you stop praying, or don't even believe. Look at the atheist is alive. And Allah, from His wisdom and His mercy, allows the atheist to live. Look at Professor Stephen Hawking. Though he had a disease that didn't make it possible for him to be mobile, He gave him life. Gave him life for how many years? They predicted he would have died like 10, 20 years ago. He was continuing living. From Allah's mercy, He allowed him to live. And so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may decree something to happen. However, it doesn't mean that thing itself is pure evil. What may be evil or bad to you, when you look at it from all angles, may be good. Here's a good example. You may want to marry somebody. This happened to, I think, many people have examples of this, if not themselves, with their families. You may have wanted to marry somebody, and you wanted to marry them badly. You're willing to compromise on so many things because you found that person attractive. Have you heard of stories like that before? We have, haven't we? Yeah. Somebody wanted to marry a sister, or a sister wanted to marry a brother because they found them so attractive that they are ready to compromise. Okay, he says, don't wear hijab, I won't wear hijab. She says, don't have a beard, alright, I'll shave my beard, alright, I won't go to the mosque, I'll pray at home. Am I right? She wants me to allow her mother and father to live with us. Okay, they can live with us. Yes? Or she wants me to move in with her family. Okay, I'll move in with her family. You'll compromise. Things that you will never ordinarily compromise. Because you really want to marry that person. Either this happened to us, we've heard it before many times, am I right? And things seem to be moving towards marriage, then something happened. It didn't happen. Have you heard those stories before? Many stories like that. Everyone's heard of those stories. That brother or that sister in that situation who desperately wanted to marry that person and it didn't work out, to them it's evil. It's bad. They don't feel like living anymore. Sometimes people go into depression because of this. And I've seen people in depression because of this. They didn't want to get to marry the person they want to marry. They go into depression. They don't care. They just stay in bed all day, or they just cry all the time. They think it's evil. But is it evil? From one point of view, to that person's evil. But what happened if you married that person? They could have taken you to places that you never imagined yourself going, isn't it? Yes? They could have taken you to places where you could have lost your deen and died upon something other than Islam. Or you could have been a very bad person. A very bad person. There is a mass murderer by the name of Myra Hindley. She's dead now, alhamdulillah. In the 1960s, her and her boyfriend were accused of killing around 5 to 6 children on the moors in Manchester. Now here comes the debate. The debate is, Myra Hindley, who wasn't an unhinged person, a very normal, ordinary person, they say that she was influenced by her boyfriend. I forgot his name now. However, how they got found out was Myra Hindley's brother-in-law was there when they carried out a murder and they asked him to help. He was there because the guy, I forgot his name now, the boyfriend wanted to bring him into the little group. So they killed a guy, a 13-year-old, was a 14-year-old, no, he was a 16-year-old. They killed him. And he was there and he helped them dispose of the body. When that happened, he went to the police and told the police everything. Now, Myra Hindley, she claims that her boyfriend influenced her and made her carry out all these other murders. They killed a 6-year-old girl, they killed an 8-year-old boy, they killed a number of children. It was big in the murder was big in the 1960s. However, the brother-in-law, Myra Hindley's brother-in-law was there of the murder. He said, I saw her face and she eagerly participated in the murder. She eagerly participated in the murder. Now here comes my point. Why did I bring her up? You don't know what type of person you may have married. They may have taken you to places like that. Taken you to places what? Like that. How do you know? How many people got involved with crime because of their husband or because of their wife? How many people because your husband or wife says, I need this, I want that. So you start to get into crime. Your family making demands on you, you need to find ways, you start to get into crime. It's very easy, isn't it? Very easy. So for example, if you do minicabs, you start saying, okay, I'll sell drugs. Transporting drugs. Easy, isn't it? Nobody suspects you, so nobody's going to stop you. Why are you doing this? Because that £10, £20, £100, whatever it is, I don't know, that you'll get will help you meet the demands of your family. You may work in a shop. So you start stealing things because they want this, they want that, they want this, they want that. So okay, you work in a supermarket, you start stealing electronic goods, stealing phones, stealing recorders, stealing stuff and selling them cheap. Why? Because you to meet that family demand. Because you marry somebody who will make demands on you and not care how you meet those demands. He or she may say, I want this, I want that, because he's a pretty boy, doesn't want to work, doesn't want to get his nails dirty. Isn't it? You have men like that, am I right? Pretty boys. Doesn't want to get his nails dirty, just got his nails pedicured. So he's going to stay at home looking pretty, while the wife has to go out to work. Yes? It's not the wife looking pretty for the husband, it's the other way around. Yes? But that person, here comes my point, doesn't care how you bring the money. They want I want a new Nike tracksuit, costs £300, and I need it by Friday. I'm going to see my auntie, and I need to wear it there. When you bring here's your £300 for your Nike tracksuit, does that person care where the money comes from? Are they going to ask you where you get the money from? A person who fears Allah will say, hey, I thought you said you had no money. Where did that come from? Am I right? Person doesn't care, they'll say, hey. So, Allah may have protected you from marrying somebody like that. Protected you, a male or a female, from marrying somebody who'd be bad for you in your deen. Bad for you as a person. And I can give you real life stories about that. But we, when that happens, only see it as evil. We only see it as evil. But when you look at it from all angles, it was a blessing. It may have been something good. And even if it wasn't something good, Allah decreed something for a wisdom we don't know. Our wisdom and knowledge is limited, as we said from the beginning. Our wisdom and knowledge is limited. And so, from the things that also is limited for us, we have to put into context, is free will. As human beings, we have free will. You have the ability to make decisions to do things or not to do things. We believe that humans, Allah blessed us with the capacity to have free will. You can decide to pray or not to pray. Can somebody force you to pray? If I was in a country, everybody prayed and they forced me to pray, is that prayer for me? Is it prayer? You see me in the masjid doing this, doing that, is that prayer? No, because first thing is the niyyah, isn't it? The niyyah. If I don't have the niyyah to pray, I'm just doing the actions. What does that mean? If during Ramadan, I'm not eating because I want to lose weight, am I fasting? Many people get twisted on this one. Well, I fast this Ramadan because I want to lose 10 kilograms. Is that the intention for fasting? No. You may say, I'm fasting to Allah and I hope I lose 10 kilograms. But you can't say, I want to lose 10 kilograms, so I'm fasting with everybody else. And people get mixed up. Am I right? People get mixed up. So, Allah's given us free will. And sometimes, because of this free will, my respected brothers and sisters, we may do things or not do things. We may do things or not do things. And these things that we do, Allah knows about it. Allah has wisdom about it, yes? Also, another thing in respect to good and evil is future sins. Can I have that paper, please? Future sin. Because as a person, you may suffer because of your sins. We as Muslims, we believe that might and glory is based upon sin. There's a very, very famous saying of Ibn Taymiyyah. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may cause a nation to arise, even if it is a non-Muslim nation, as long as they are based upon justice, equality. A rough translation of what he said. Look at that. And we see that, don't we see that? Many of us left the Muslim world, why? Because our society is far away from Islam. Far away, culturally far away, politically far away, socially far away from Islam. We come to the West, alhamdulillah, in certain respects, much better. We're not saying they're totally better, no. Because spiritually, no way. And ultimately, no way. But in certain aspects, And we see because of this, equality and justice, which we benefit from, Allah has blessed their societies. Look at our society. We live in a blessed country. How is it blessed? If you're sick, what happens to you? It's National Health Service, isn't it? They take you to hospital. There are countries in the world, if you're sick and dying on the street, people just walk over you. Many countries in the world, if you die on the street, what do they do with your body? Bring you to the morgue, fill out the death certificate, that's it. Stick you in a pauper's grave. Look at that. So we are blessed. And I say this all the time, which we seem to forget. Even practicing our religion, we are blessed in this country. If you look at countries like Denmark, where they're banning the niqab, like 2 sisters wear the niqab, but they have legislation banning the niqab. Isn't that crazy? You have like 20 women in the whole of Denmark, 20 million people, and 20 women wear niqab and you're banning the niqab. What are you banning? What are you banning? Are you banning the niqab or trying to make a political statement against Islam? There's not enough people. If you had 1 million women wearing niqab, I can understand your concern. But also, why would you ban the niqab if women are free to wear what they want, or not what they want to wear? Isn't it? How can you go to Iraq? How can you go to Afghanistan? How can you go to any part of the world saying we're coming with liberty, freedom and justice, when in Afghanistan a woman wants to wear the burqa, she's free to wear it? I said this many times. We in the Muslim world have had some of the most tyrannical people in history. But even under them, look at that, Saddam Hussein, as bad as he was, if you went to wear a niqab, you could wear a niqab. Muammar Gaddafi, as bad as he was, if you want to wear niqab, you could wear the niqab. Look at that, we call them tyrants. Where in the lands of the free, like Denmark, you can't wear the niqab. Does that make sense to anybody? Anyhow, so we believe as Muslims that the link between good and evil is sins. For our sins, good can happen. And for our sins, bad can happen. Good can happen if you are sinful, you make tawbah to Allah, Allah opens the doors of mercy for you. Bad can happen, we can see. Look around the Muslim world, we can see sins that happen. For example, one of the sins that we have is the sin of khuruj, revolting against the ruler. One of the biggest migrant crises we have is because of people trying to overthrow their ruler. As bad as their ruler was, look at it today. As bad as Gaddafi was, what are people in Libya saying today? If only we had Gaddafi. And he was bad. But if we listen to the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, that we would know that nothing comes good out of revolt. We see evil comes out of revolt. And so for our sins, our past sins, our future sins, it is linked to good and evil. Also linked to good and evil is a detachment from the dunya. The more that we become invested in the dunya spiritually, the more that we see evil happening to us. The less we become spiritually invested in the dunya, good happens to us. Also, the good and evil is a purification of the heart. When bad happens to you, what do? You recognize your status as a creation and you return back to your Creator, isn't it? If everything good happened to us, how would we be as an ummah? What would happen if everything was good, peace and security, there was no troubles, no tribulation? What would happen to us as believers? We'd be very relaxed, isn't it? Yes or no? Yeah? But when evil happens, or bad happens, you have 2 choices. You become pessimistic. Oh, everything is bad, everything is evil, there's no good. Or you can say to yourself, whoa, maybe it's a test from Allah. I need to fix up, isn't it? Yeah? I need to fix myself up. And so you purify your heart, and you stay away from sins. You detach yourself from the dunya. Also, of good and evil, when bad comes to you, my respected brothers and sisters, it also reminds you of paradise. If I have difficulty in this life, we as Muslims, we have hope in the next life, isn't it? Yes? If things are bad for me in this life, I will have relief and I'll have ease in the next life. We don't believe you're just like a car. Turn the car off and it stops. No. We believe, alhamdulillah, that if I have difficulties in this life and I die upon those difficulties, be patient with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happens? Then I will have relief and I have ease in the next life. Also, for the Muslim, everything is good. The Prophet told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, amazing is the affair of the believer. Indeed, all of his affair is good. And this is not for no one except for the believer. If something good or happiness befalls him, he is grateful, and that is good for him. If something harms and befalls him, he is patient, and that is good for him. Look at that. So nothing is ever totally bad. For the believer, if good happens, we say alhamdulillah. If bad happens, we say alhamdulillah. Remember I told you the story about the Palestinian man in Egypt? That he lost the equivalent of £5,000. And he went, got a goat, sacrificed the goat and gave the meat to the poor. So I said, when the brother told me this one, I was like, bro, this better be good. You lose a lot of money you sacrifice. I said, bro, this better be a good one. And he explained that the person sacrificed because Allah gave him fitna in something which you can always get back. You lose £5,000, so you hustle, you get the £5,000 back tomorrow. Isn't it? That's the reality. How many of us have had £2,000 this month and you have £5,000 the following month? Money comes and goes. It's like that, isn't it? That's the nature of money. So when you have money, you say alhamdulillah, you're grateful. When you lose money, unlike some people, they're ready to commit suicide because they lost money. Have you seen that? I remember I used to be in a Muslim country when they started the stock market. And it was win-win. Only nationals of that country could invest in the stock market. It was win-win. You put in 1,000, you got to have 10,000. So what happened is people putting money in the stock market, but stock markets, they go up and they come down. So you find people go to the bank, they borrow like £100,000 to put in the stock market. They get 100,000, they hope they put it in, they get £500,000 back. They give back the 100,000, 400,000 in their pockets. But the stock market went bust. That's the nature of stock markets, isn't it? Bitcoin was worth 22. I remember Bitcoin. Remember Bitcoin? I was talking about Bitcoin long ago, isn't it? I knew about Bitcoin maybe 7-8 years ago. I could have gone to Bitcoin, but I didn't trust it because the Bitcoin is linked to the dark market. Yes, and I told you, brothers, the same people who made the Bitcoin know what's happening on the dark market. Don't believe the hype. So look at the Bitcoin. How did Bitcoin, if it was something illegal, how did it become mainstream? How? It's impossible. Unless there's a legal entity that made it mainstream, not selling cannabis and marijuana. In Arizona 10 years ago, selling marijuana was illegal. Now the government made it legal, you can sell it, am I right? So the same entity. So I could go into Bitcoin, I'll be rich. I could have sold all my Bitcoins. I didn't get involved because I was very, very cautious about it. But Bitcoin one day was 22,000, boom, it went down. Yeah? This is the nature of the beast. So people, they borrowed money they didn't have for the stock market, and it went bust. They lost money. You had people having heart attacks. Middle-aged men borrowing money, they had heart attacks. But the believer, all of it is good. But when something bad happens, it's not all evil. We say to ourselves, alhamdulillah, it's purification for us. And to expiate our sins. We learn from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that bad deeds, something bad happening to the believer can expiate, wipe away sins. Even the prick of a thorn, fever, wipes away sins. So when something befalls us, what do? We say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And as believers, we think and see it's something good for us. If you don't understand it that way, if you don't understand the nature of God, what happens? You despair. You spend all, someone has 5 years to live, they spend all 5 years just despairing, sad and crying. What does a believer do if he has 5 years to live? He gets himself, fix himself up and get himself correct with Allah, isn't it? Yes. Get yourself correct with Allah and value those things you need to value. So you spend time with your wife, you spend time with your children, you spend time with your mother, with your father, things that you just took for granted, am I right? Took for granted, making those 5 years or 5 months or 5 days, time you invested in your family. Also, we understand that suffering is temporary. We understand that when you talk about evil, that suffering is temporary. That it only will happen for a short period of time and inshallah go away. Or if it happens in this life, you'll have relief in the next life. Also, we understand that Allah has created us for a purpose. And as His creation, He does with us as He wills. He does with us as He wills. And so we understand this life, is it your life? My life? No. This life belongs to Allah. He takes it when He pleases, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a look into good and evil. That one, we have to have a correct understanding about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's just, He's all-wise and He's powerful. Two, that evil is not totally evil or all bad. If you look at it from one angle, which is a limited understanding perhaps, but if you look at it from multiple angles, you can see that it's not totally bad. Then we looked at some of the reasons why. Evil can save us, something which we think is bad, we could be saved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from making a decision which is bad for us. Also, by having free will, we make decisions, it shows us that we make good or bad decisions. Also, that something which seems to be evil can be expiation of our sins, wipe away our sins. Also, it could be something that we get relief from in the next life. Also, it could be something that causes us to enter into the next life. Also, it could be something that makes us patient. So we have to look at evil, good and evil, from its totality, not just from one angle which most people do. Not only from one angle which most people do. And one of the biggest problems that we find with people, because they don't understand God, have a right concept of God, when somebody is sick and dying, they look at the person like a machine. Once you're gone, that's it, all over. They don't recognize that maybe the person is dying, and it's time for them and for you to value what is left of their life. They don't recognize that maybe there's difficulty in this life, but they'll get ease in the next life. They don't recognize that their passing away is something of hope for them, not something of despair. That brings us to the end of our Jazakumullah khair, being very gracious and very patient with me today. If there are any questions, we take questions. If not, then inshallah ta'ala, we open the floor for any clarifications. That I spoke a lot and for a long time possibly made some mistakes. If that is no questions or clarifications, then inshallah we look about the argument for design. We didn't look at the argument for design, did we? About design and creation. Okay, barakallahu. Any questions, clarifications?
Sure.
Jazakumullah khair for spending your Saturday. I know many people are out there in the park, sunbathing, chillaxing, taking it easy. So may Allah reward you all for being here in the masjid and trying to benefit and learn something. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.